our sound is live. We're just gonna be a second, guys.
We exist, honestly.
Yes, we do. And we're sorry if we're taking you away from Gillian Anderson.
We can all go and watch it afterwards. That's what I'll be doing as soon as we're done. So.
We will, absolutely. We promise. We're gonna be with you in just a second. We were having a little bit of technical difficulties. Well, Zoom difficulties, usually.
Yeah, even a live stream, Zoom doesn't misbehave.
Yeah, it's getting rare.
Yeah.
All right, so sound and okay, we are live. Everyone, hello. Hello. So,
in the void.
Yeah, we look good. We're good. We should let the Twitterers know that we're on.
Yes, that it's working.
We should. Okay. How you doing, Lola?
Oh, I've had better days, if I can be honest, but I'm finally having a week off for the first time in about 6 months, so it's been nice and not very active.
Oh, that is, I mean, you've worked so hard. We worked so hard.
Yeah. We had a busy couple of weeks there, didn't we? That's why we weren't around last week.
Probably you more than me, but last week was intense.
Yeah. I looked at all my deadlines about 6 weeks ago, and I was like, well, the one thing I want to make sure is that the book and the script don't end up being due, because they're due on the same day. I want to make sure I finish one of them first, and I'm not working on them both by the Friday. Well, that wasn't quite how it worked out, but I'm a deadline junkie, so it's my own doing. It gets me over the line, but it makes for a very stressful last few days. But it's all in and done now. It took me all of Saturday to kind of register that stuff was in. Then there was a technical problem with my script submission, and I had to redo all of that on a random Sunday afternoon. It just kept saying
that sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, it wasn't showing up where it was supposed to show up, and I had already posted a hard copy, thankfully, but yeah, it's just one of those, just like, you're like, it's done, mentally I'm gone, I'm finished, and then someone goes, actually, and you're like, no! But no, my professor was really good about it, and we got it sorted out between us, so all is well, all is submitted, and it's officially break time, so yes, one lazy girl. What about you?
Well, it was a rush working on your draft last week. I really had a good time, to be honest. Like,
it showed.
Yes. Well, the most important part is I hope you had a good time. If you guys don't know, you did? That's good. I mean, if you guys don't know, Lola's a published writer, and she's published with Ilva Publishing, which is a lesfic publishing house. And I'm a writer, but I'm also an editor. And I have been working with Lola on her book is coming out in September.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for the date to be lined up, but
yeah.
Well, I think Ilva know. I just don't yet. But so September for sure.
Yeah. So it's kind of fitting to the theme of today's episode, because we just went through the whole pretty much process of what happens before you get published.
Yeah, we're fresh from the editing mills. So.
We did. So it was a lot of work, and it was a lot of fun. And I'm glad that you had a good experience, because as an editor, it's really important to me to be able to give my writers good experiences. So people today. Oh, by the way, Lola's book that's out right now, and all the others are in the description. The link is in the description below if you want it. And you should. I liked it. It was cute and nice and romancy.
Pure escapism for this current time where we all need to escape, I think. So.
It was lovely. So yes, today we're going to get in the real goods. Today we are talking to you about what it's like when you're ready to go to publish, when you feel like you want to publish. So obviously we're going to give you the rundown for fan fiction, but the fiction process is a little bit more complex. But if you have
essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you finished your draft, there's a few things you're going to, and if you want to be published, there's a few things you can consider. The first thing is editing, and that's not even an option. It's like you need to. You need to. The second thing is, are you going to be, when are you, and how do you know that you're ready? And what do you do to pitch your story? And who do you pitch it to? Because I hate that word. I can't say it. It's my French thing. So if I mispronounce, please don't take it wrong. So yes, it's gonna be free. It's gonna be pitching to either an agent or either a publisher. And we're going to talk to you about agents as well. And we're going to talk to you about publishers and all the things that you need to do, the money that these things cost, the money that you can hope to be making from your book if you're on your own.
There's a lot of variables to that, so we won't really be able to give you a,
we're not going to give you the precise amount of money, right? Yeah. Obviously, every book is different. It depends on how successful you are. It depends on a lot of things. Yeah, exactly. But we're going to give you ballparks.
Resources.
We're going to give you, we're going to give you good ideas. Like, we're going to talk in terms of, like, I'd say, brackets, right? You could expect between this and that kind of thing.
I mean,
for certain things.
I mean, I genuinely only know the income of 2 authors in this world.
Okay.
And everything else, you kind of hear snippets, and you have an idea, or this advance was that, or this percentage is that. But yeah, the most important thing is knowing what sounds roughly kind of right, and also who you can go
to
make sure your contracts are legit. So, like, what guilds do you have? What unions do you have? And all that kind of thing. That's more important than the actual mechanics of any one individual contract or one.
Indeed. But we're going to give you
with one publisher. So
we're going to give you the true experience that we have, at least, and we're not going to, we'll give you the goods. So
also, I'm British and I can't talk about money, so let's forget about that.
But I'm French and I can, so I'll make her. Don't worry.
We'll balance.
I've got you guys. I've got you guys. So we're gonna talk to you briefly about fan fiction because it's a free to read system usually, right? I mean, you get recognition, but differently, not in dollars, or euros, or pounds, or your currency. But so yes, so here is the position. When you've finished your story, you feel like you have a full draft. You've kind of like you've divided in chapters. You kind of had your best friend read it, or your partner, or you're like, okay, I want to get it out there. So the first thing that you want to do if you're a fan fiction writer is editing. That's common to every publishing. So editing for fan fiction, it's up to you how serious you want to be with that. I'm very serious about it, obviously. I have an editor. It's always the same person. She's my best friend, so it works. Yes. But if you're brand new in the fanfiction realm and you're like, how the fuck am I going to find an editor? In fanfiction, we often call them beta reader.
Although technically, they kind of have two different.
Those are two different.
Super strict about it, but
exactly.
People often volunteer to do both.
So if you're in fandom, chances are a few people in the fandom that you like for the pairing that you like. Yeah. So the first thing you want to do is go to Twitter or Tumblr and put it out there that you would like, if someone has the time and wants to, you'd like to at least find a beta reader. If you're lucky, you'll find a beta reader that also is good at grammar. If you're not lucky, you'll find a beta reader that knows the pairing well, has read a lot of fan fiction on the pairing, and will give you some information. They'll give you feedback, and that's what you're looking for vastly in fan fiction. Obviously, there are tools like Grammarly, or even in your Google Docs and stuff. There are decent text editors that can help, but a beta reader is really important because they will give you a feeling. It's better to have more than one. Don't bother with like 12 of them. But if you have 2 or 3 beta readers, it's good, because with a little bit of chance, they'll also be sensitivity reader. So if you're gonna have a couple beta readers, try to find people who, match the inclusivity and the diversity in your story.
Yeah.
And the experiences that you're
parts right as well.
Exactly. If you have characters of colors, if you have characters that are that are LGBTQ, that have different identities or genders, try to figure out a beta reader that can speak for those experiences, at least a little bit, so that you get feedback that's actually relevant to what you've written.
Yeah, and it's also a case of covering your own blind spots as well, because for example, you might live with a particular disability, but not all disabilities are the same. So you might want to run it past, even if it's just part of the story, run it past someone who is happy to do it, is the key part. But if they have a physical disability that you don't share, but they share with your character, then it's always awesome to just little things that you don't consider, like how people write, things about wheelchair users, or about blindness. I think is one people get wrong quite a lot.
Definitely.
About how people actually interact with the world and what they can partially see or hear and stuff like that.
Mental health,
and
trauma, a lot of things
not
like
all
that.
Conditions are created equally, so it's always good to just get a bit of lived experience if you possibly can. And obviously, as if it's not for fanfic, if it's for like creative nonfiction, or if it's for a book, then you'd probably be at this stage where that's someone you would, if your publisher doesn't offer to do it, then you would kind of suggest and or insist that you get someone to specifically read for that content, and not just a well-meaning person who thinks they get it because there's something to be said.
Because that's never the reality of it, of those experiences are not something that you think you can get. Just don't assume that.
I mean, that's why you need to be edited in the first place. It doesn't matter how good you are and how technically correct you are and how much attention you pay and how many drafts you go through. You need an editor. You need a second pair of eyes minimum. And if you can get 2 or 3 sets,
Lola has how many? 5 books published?
Yes, it'll be 5 this year. Yeah.
Right. So. Okay, so it's not your first rodeo, and still, every time Lola writes a fan fiction, she gets edited.
Yeah, pretty much.
Same for me. I've written about 20 different pieces of fan fiction, and I get edited every time. The thing is, get some beta readers, and if you can, as much as you can, find an editor that can do, at the very least, some copy editing for you, a little bit of line editing, so they'll be able to like fact check with you if you've, fact checked on the show that you're fan fiction writing about, or fact check on some things that you might have like created a coffee shop at you, and you'll
find that
it's always good to know temperatures and stuff for coffee or whatever. I'm just
if it's something you've never done, like there's no harm in being accurate.
Exactly. So
it stops people being jarred out of the story, and the thing is with beta reading as well, like you might be like, oh, I'm not really an editor and I don't know, I haven't done like a degree in English or whatever, but that the skill sometimes is just the feedback. It's this didn't make sense to me, or I didn't really get what you were trying to do here, or this it kind of worked, but I didn't think it was romantic enough or whatever. Even a lot of your fave like pro writers at the moment will still have beta reading groups, and they'll have a little network of people. So Jay is one of them, for example, from Lesfic, who has beta readers who they get the first maybe not the first draft, maybe after just before it goes to for full edit. And they'll get.
You'll find Discord groups. You'll find my favorite place to find all those resources is Twitter. You can go on Tumblr, you can go on Facebook, obviously, but you'll find people that are comfortable in the fandom that you're writing for, and in there, just say, I'm looking for ideally, you need 3 things. You need a little bit of sensitivity reading, you need a little bit of beta reading, and you need some line editing. That's ideally what you need. To get those things, sometimes you'll get fans, you'll get people that are really excited, and if you contact them, they'll help you out if it's not your first show. If it is, you might get people who are always willing to help, which in fandom happens a lot. You can trade with other writers, so you can beta edit or sensitivity read or do some line editing for someone else on their story, and they'll help you with yours. That's also a very good thing to do. But those opportunities will come to you definitely on social media, and once you've joined maybe a few groups or a few group chats or a few things that don't hesitate. And I'm going to say this, I don't hesitate to contact writers that you like. That doesn't fan fiction writers that you like. Yeah. That doesn't mean ask them for the service, but contact them and say, hey, I'm new in the fandom. I'm trying to put out a story, but I don't have a beta reader or an editor, and I don't know who to ask. And chances are they know a lot of people because they've been in there. Like if you ask Lola, if you send a DM to Lola, she's not going to tell you to fuck off. She's going to tell you, okay, yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I mean, if you send me that message, if we're talking like, 100,000 words, I'm not going to do it. But if we're talking like 5K, I might look at your thing. And if I don't have time or anything, I'll ask someone that I know if they want to. Or I'll just retweet you on my on my Twitter for my followers and my readers to know about you. That you're looking for help or something. But it's okay to ask for help. Just don't ask straight up for the service.
Just a thread about that on Twitter today, actually.
That would be super rude.
we have to remember in a digital age, like if you worked with someone in an office, fancy, I know. But if you needed a favor from someone you worked with, you wouldn't go up and go, hey, I need you to do like 3 hours of work for me immediately. Could you do it now? Thanks, bye. You would be like, hey, how's it going? How's your day? I was just getting a coffee. Can I get you one? You would like make some conversation first. And I'm not saying be fake, but like it's nice to, like, for example, if you're approaching someone because you think, hey, your work always looks great and really well edited, who's your editor? Could I borrow them? That's fine to ask, but maybe start with like telling them that you like their work first, and that's why you're asking them, because they seem to know what they're doing. And I always enjoy reading your stories, and I always think they're so well written.
You've been in fandom for so long, and I'm trying to put it out there. It's my first work. I'm really nervous about it, and I'm looking for people who can help me, and I don't know who to ask or what to even offer them. Because sometimes I know people who will happily read for you if you credit them. Well, because they like to
do it just to get more content out in the fandom. Like they want there to be more good fic out there. So
and they do it in fandom for other people, and they're happy that more people want to ask them. So yes, there's always a way in fandom, as long as you use your manners and you're respectful and you're clever about it, and you're always ready to give as much as you take. Because if you only take, your reputation will be out there very quickly. And it's not cool. just be cool about it. It's it works. So now that we've covered what you need to get for fan fiction, once you've done this and you're comfortable, like you're never going to be comfortable. You're going to freak out on your first publish. But once you've done all of that, what you need to do is be very smart, and you can, if you have someone on your team, on your side, that's really used to fandom, help ask them about the tags. you need to go to a site called AO3, Archive of Our Own, and do not, like, there are other places, but this is the place. If you want to get your fanfiction read by someone, read as reading, like not beta reading. But if you want to put it out there, the best site to do it, you will find other sites like fanfiction.net or other places like Don't. It's a cesspool, seriously. AO3 is great. Yeah, it's all you need. Everybody who reads fanfiction reads it there. And it has a very strong search engine, but it also has, and for that search engine to be really good, you need to tag your work very well. So you need to think about content warnings, because that's important. A lot of people, in books, it's another story, but in fanfiction, do put content warning. If you have things that are violent or very graphic, or, the archive has warnings for you. It's very well done. But yes, you want to think about your tags and think about your warnings. And once you have all of that, obviously you're pairing all of that. Once you've filled up that page, like we already gave you the lengths of chapters and such like that. When you've done that, you have to press publish, and then it's immediate. And after that, you'll get kudos, you'll get comments. Good idea to post a link on your social media, on Twitter, if you have a fandom Twitter, or regular Twitter. I use, my regular Twitter is my fandom Twitter, but use your Tumblr if you have a Tumblr, and again, tag well, and then just, it takes a life of its own, and it's out there, and you've done it. And you just have to do it again. If you publish, I like to publish finished stories. When I have works in progress, I never have a schedule because I suck at schedules. Lola's great at schedules, but I suck at them. A good release, like even if your story's finished, you can release chapter per chapter. Do it weekly. It's a good way to do it. There are days that are good. There are days that are good, like Friday is a good day, Sunday is a good day, and Wednesday is a good day.
Be quite bad, but
Friday's bad.
That's what we found when we did the virtual season. But
okay.
It can depend on the fandom as well.
I know Wednesday is good, and Sunday is good.
People tend to have free time.
Definitely. Week, so. Try to post in the times, at a time where it can pretty much hit everybody. Post for the Americans, but definitely.
If you do it before they get up, they won't come back later in the day. So you'll have to post a second time for them otherwise. So it's generally better to post. We posted our virtual
Saturday's good too.
Weeknights at 9 p.m. Eastern. No, right. Sorry, 7 p.m. Eastern, which was midnight my zone. And so it was a bit late for the Europeans, but we find that Europeans, because we're used to like the shows that we watch air overnight, so in the morning we go and like check fandom.
Yeah, we get it the next day. Yeah,
but the Americans aren't used to it,
we're conditioned to check the next day. So I usually post a little earlier than that, but find a time zone, and it's find a time zone. On AO3, there's a lot of places where you can look at statistics and stuff. So find the right time for the time zone that you're at. Pretty much post for Americans.
It always finds its audience eventually, but it's just if you want.
You'll fine tune it for sure. But Wednesdays and Sundays, and I like to post on Friday, but for me it's Saturday. So But you don't have to, choose a date. But during the week, Wednesday is a good day, and Sunday is a good day as well. Right. And once you've done that, just moderate your comments. You can answer them, you can not answer them. Choose what you want to do, but be mindful of them. Like I would moderate the comments, because sometimes stuff is weird in there, and that you just, just be mindful. Personally, I don't answer my comments. Some people answer them a lot. Well, people, like, if you want to have a strong, like, social relationship with your readers, then answer your comments, because that will bring you relationships. And in the beginning, it's not a bad idea, especially if you don't have beta readers and you don't have an editor and all of that. You can even in your notes in your published chapter say that you're looking for people to do that, and you might have surprises.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it. Once you've done that, just keep doing it, and if it feels good, you've won.
Indeed. I mean, obviously for books, it's going to be
different.
It's a way more technical
completely
process,
different.
and it's out of your hands.
Right,
so.
but we still wanted to tell you, if you're a fan fiction writer, congratulations.
Yeah.
You're published.
You're at the fun part now.
Yeah, it is the fun part. Personally, it freaks me out, but it's like, well, I mean, I don't, again, and I think we're going to give you that same advice that we gave you a couple episodes back. If you're doing it for the fame, this is not going to make you happy. If you're doing it because you love to write and you love the characters that you're writing for, and you want to do it for telling stories because you want to put it out there, then that will make you happy.
Sounds about right.
There you go. So now we're going to talk to you about publishing and all the steps and different things if you're doing it for fiction and you want to be out there in terms of, selling your book.
Yeah. So it varies a lot. You're going to have to take a lot of it with a pinch of salt, because there's things that are true for self-publishing that are not true for indie presses, that are not true for mainstream publishers. So we'll just kind of sort of try and amalgamate the best overall advice, because it will vary massively.
Yes,
so.
It will vary from genre, from publishers, from it will vary. But we're going to talk to you about less fic first, and we're going to talk to you about indie publishing, I think. And if we have mainstream things that we want to add, we'll put them in there. The editing aspect, the first step of everything is editing. And that is the same. The editing steps and process that you can go for are the same for whatever genre or publishing you're going for. But they won't cost the same. If you're doing mainstream, if you're doing romance, if you're doing less fic, if you're doing indie or self-published, as an editor, I will not charge a self-publishing author the same way I would charge a publishing house for doing editing services for them for one author. It's going to depend. And obviously, if you're a self-publisher and you've published like 10 books and you're making a living this way, it's different if you're coming to me and you're telling me this is my first book. I don't know that I'll ever write another one. I've never done this before. I don't have a lot of money. I don't know what to do. We'll scale it. I definitely have scaling prices, rates. I'm okay with that. But clearly, the one thing I'm going to tell you, and then this is very serious, whatever you're asking, and from the moment you're looking for an editor or a sensitivity editor, reader and editor are not the same thing for sensitivity. I will tell you about that again. Also, sorry. But whatever you're looking for, be prepared to pay for something. Do not ask for services or contact someone. The amount of people I see on Twitter using the writing community tag or editor tag saying, I'm looking for sensitivity reader for this and this, and they're putting a blurb, like a picture of a little blurb about their book for, so that people know what kind of reading they need. And I'll slide into, I'll slide in their mentions or in their DMs and say, hey, I'm available. I can read for this. What kind of deadline are we talking about? How many words do you have? do you want, if you give me that information, I can give you a quote. And people answer by saying, oh, I really don't have any money. This is not a paying gig.
Yeah, that's not really the time to mention it.
Do not do that. Seriously. It's so, first of all, most of the time, if you're doing sensitivity reading or editing, reading first, editing two, or any kind of other editing, you're a lot gonna be talking to marginalized people. You're going to talk to people who have specific experience that are not just your average vanilla. So you're going to, you know, if you're going to ask someone, take their work seriously, and even if you don't have a lot of money, if you come to Twitter, writing Twitter, I'm talking about, if you come to writing or editing Twitter and you say, hey, I need this service, I don't have a lot of money, but, you know, if anyone is willing to work something out with me, this is what these are the services that I need, then this looks serious. I'd rather do it for dirt cheap money just to help you out. And because it's good, I might ask you for a review on my website. I might ask you for a customer review. I might ask you for a reference one day. Those things are fine. But if you come to me and say, oh, I want you to work for me, but I don't want to pay you because I don't have the money for that, you don't look serious. It means you're not serious about your book. And it's not proper to ask for editing. It's like, you know, it's like all these people who want websites and then never want to pay for them because they think like it's something they could do themselves. You can't be an editor. It's an actual job. unless you're trained and you're an editor yourself and you want to exchange services. Again, that's another thing. Some people will accept exchanging services. But if you're a writer and you're looking into publishing, even self-publishing, and you don't have that much money, you need to make a budget, and your first budget needs to go into editing your book. If you have a draft that's not edited, that's not sensitivity read, that is not fact-checked, and that is not developmental, that doesn't have a basic developmental assessment on it, and you're trying to go get an agent or a publisher, you will get the door. It will not work because your draft is not good. So
Maybe a little negative. Your draft is only as good as you as one person can make it. But what you'll see in a finished book is always a product of
So
a lot of people's talent and skills, because they can see things and they can bring things to a story or to your writing that you didn't actually know you were capable of until someone brings it out for you. So if you want it to be absolutely the best possible, then, which it'll need to be because it's so competitive to get published now,
it is,
then you've got to give it its best chance and just put it in its best possible condition before you start showing it to people who can make it happen.
And editing is how you make it. It's how you give it its best chance. Honestly,
yeah.
I mean, at least in my opinion.
The best thing to know about the editing process as an author is, you know, I can't edit to save my life. I can read things and give people opinions, but I'm not an editor. I don't do that kind of detail work, and my brain is just not set up for it. But I respect the job enough to know that I'm not good at it, basically. But as a writer, the best thing you can do is look at it as kind of like a collaboration, really. And
it is a collaboration.
You know,
it should be, at least.
You can't talk down to people, so you can't tell an editor they don't know something because they didn't write it. But by the same token, they shouldn't really be telling you that, you know, you're just a writer. What do you know? So that kind of thing.
That's not how you do editing.
That's not how you do most things working together, let's be honest.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's just, if you go in with an open mind, there are things that you're going to feel really strongly about. I often find that stuff that I have based like on my real life or my own experiences, I tend to fight harder for those, because, you know, if an editor says, yeah, that doesn't really work for me, I don't know why you're putting that in here, you can be like, well, I have a reason and here's what it is. But for the most part, they'll be like, hey, if someone who doesn't have the same experience as you reads this book, then that's going to confuse them, or that's not well written, or it's not necessary, and it's making the story feel slow, or all that kind of thing. So if you go in with an open mind and be like, I will fight for the things that I think are really important and I think were quite good and don't really need to be changed, but you'll be surprised how quickly you can let go of things that you thought were like the best thing about the book. Because if someone tells you in the right way that it's not working, doesn't need to be there, then suddenly you can look at it with fresh eyes and be like, oh yeah, that really doesn't fit, or that isn't needed at all. And it's a really nice feeling in a way, because then you're thinking, I can make this better. And then you read it back and you think, oh wow, yeah, this is what I wanted it to sound like when I first wrote it.
A good editor will be always in the position of elevating you and your book, making sure that the best of you comes out.
Yeah.
No, it's not, and there's a lot of prejudice on editing. People think, oh, it's they're just going to want to cut things and kill my darlings, and
but there's a reason that advice has held up for so long. It's because it works. You do have to sometimes. You get oddly attached to things, characters, scenes, a particular sentence, whatever it is, and you're like, no, I can't give it up. No, it won't be my book if it doesn't have that in it. But when I was turning Music in the Mirror from fic into a book, I got rid of an entire character, and she's one of my favorite characters. I was like, give me her back.
Yeah, I can't do that.
my editor was like, listen, the book's already long. It's 120k, which is very long for a romance, and you've basically got two villains, which is fine. That's how it worked for the fanfic. But if you have two villains in the book, then people who don't know that universe are going to be like, well, why is she mad at both of them? Why can't they team up or be one person? And it turned out, you could have one villain and that villain could do both of those storylines. And it was like, okay. And it was much neater and much easier to follow. So, I was very, my babies. But you get over it.
I don't, I know that, okay. I know that sometimes it can be intimidating. Editing can be intimidating, but it's a very nice process when it goes well, and when you trust your editor, the experience can be really fulfilling. You learn a lot of things, you grow. Editing makes you grow as a writer.
Because you remember what you get corrected on for the next time. You go to do it again and you think, oh, I didn't need, this was that thing with the dialogue tags or the paragraphs or whatever it happens to be. And you don't do it from there on. I mean, I've got stuff I was edited on for fic like 15 years ago. And I still think if I catch myself doing it again, I'm like, nope,
don't
editor
do that.
would not have let me do this. So I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. So you're going to learn a lot. The process is going to be, it should be fulfilling eventually. And it should make you proud. Like, it gets you a good feeling at the end. Like, you've really worked hard and gave it your best, and you've allowed someone to touch something that's very, very precious to you. And if you got a good editor, you will always feel like you've gotten something out of it. Like you're leaving this experience enriched. And if it's not how you feel, then don't put it on the editing process, putting on the person you worked with. Sometimes
and not everyone will be an instant fit. Like
no,
my wife does editing as well, and there's certain things that she just doesn't. If people have approached her, and she'll kind of have a quick look at the description or whatever, and she'll say, listen, it's just not something I can edit well because I don't know the genre, or I don't know, I don't feel comfortable with the subject material, or whatever it happens to be. And editors have boundaries too, as well as your readers. So just be prepared to shop around the same way as you would shop around for like your cover art, or anything else that involved another person being involved in your project. It's got to be a meeting of the minds. But you've also got to leave your ego at the door a little bit. If you do both of those things, if you keep an open mind on who can help and also what you can do to change, then it's generally quite painless. Like I've had a couple of blips along the way, just with like we haven't we haven't always understood what the other person was trying to do at various points, not even in like big edits, like sometimes in copy editing. If something seems inconsistent, then I got really hung up on slammed over something really silly. I can't remember what it was. And it took me like 2 weeks to get my head around it. And it should have been so simple. And I was just like, I don't understand what you mean. And, I should have sent an email that first day and just said, I don't get this. But,
because your editor, I know as an editor, I'm always open to answer questions. I also do a lot of live sessions with my writers. I find that it's kind of nice. Like I send it to them. I send my edits to them when it's done. I let them do the pass and look at everything. And then I just say, put comments where something's weird or you're not comfortable. Don't touch the edit if you don't like it, or if it makes you feel uncomfortable, or if you don't know why it's there or whatever. And then send me back that pass. And we'll do a live, we'll go on Discord, or we'll do a Zoom chat, or FaceTime, or whatever. With Lola, we FaceTime because Lola likes to see you. And we'll do a live together for how much did we do last week? Like 2-3 hours together?
If that, yeah, about 2 hours probably.
I usually don't even charge my clients for it. I'm very nice about it. And they can ask me any questions. I try to explain to them. Like we talked about tense with Lola and a few things that, wasn't very clear. But we talk also about, fact checking or things like that. We had a conversation about, we have conversations about, like, I'm not going to give you details because I can't. No spoilers. But yeah, I like to have a live session with my clients. It helps them. It's usually a very positive experience. I don't do it with everyone. Some people don't want it.
Yeah, but some people and run away.
Yeah, some people really enjoy that. So yes. Now I'm just gonna give you a little bit of explanation, like technical, on what types of editing you can get, and then I think we need to move on to the next thing. So you can get different editing. The first editing that you can get is called developmental editing. That usually happens at the beginning of the publishing process. Like you've sent in your draft, whether you have a publisher, an agent, or you're self-publishing. It's a person. It could be the same person for everything, but for the sake of the conversation, we're going to say different editors. So the first thing you might want to look at, and it's also, really
just before we get stuck into this, sometimes you will, so for the developmental edit, you probably might want to have at least one run through with someone before you start submitting. But for example, for me, developmenting, copy and proofreading are all done by my publisher, so I don't have to seek out those people.
I was going to say
form the relationship. Sorry. So just clarify that sometimes you'll need them yourself publishing. You need to find them yourself, and obviously.
Yes. So there's a very first thing I'm going to because obviously I didn't tell you how I'm going to do it. The very first thing that you want to do, if you finished your draft and you're looking for a publisher or an agent and then a publisher, then the first editing that you actually want to do on your book is called an editorial assessment or a draft evaluation. So what it is an editor, a developmental editor, most of the time, is going to read your draft from the beginning to end, and they're going to send you an editorial assessment report, so a letter or an email or a document. And what they're going to say in there is they're going to give you a general assessment of your draft and tell you where things were working, where things weren't working. They're going to possibly give you a few elements of suggestion to tell you what you could change. And they're going to go through the whole thing, but they're not going to charge you like a developmental editing, because that's more expensive, more time, and a lot and notes directly inside of your draft. But if you do an editorial assessment, it's a good thing to tell you if your draft is ready for pitch. And whether it's to a publisher or an agent, it's a very good thing to do to know where you're at. So it's going to tell you, okay, I read this and I think you have a sensitivity issue here. I think that this chapter should be here. I didn't understand this character. Or, as a reader, it wasn't very clear for me when you talk about your villain, why they're a villain, or, they're going to give you key points and really insights about your draft. And you can work on them by yourself after that, but they can tell you, right, if you address this and this and this, I think your draft is ready for editing and for the publishing process. And that's what you're looking with in editorial assessment. They can also tell you, okay, I think you should write a chapter on this, or your conflict is not, vibrant enough, or you're missing, you're ending on something and I feel like it's a little rushed, or so you'll get all this information and you can work. The solutions won't be given to you because that is developmental editing, but the pointers on where you have issues will be given to you. So then you can start working and try to figure it out. So when you do the editorial assessment, I'm not going to tell you how much I charge for it because I'm not certain, but yeah, it's probably it depends who you are. So I'm not going to give you a rate exactly, but in any case, for just a sensitivity rating or an editorial assessment, don't expect, you should expect something like, I don't know.
I would say probably low hundreds is my experience of that.
And if I'm gonna say per, so you can say amounts per number of words or per hour.
Yeah, and the thing
usually
is,
in long form.
If you don't know, then there's a bunch. I don't know for the US. I assume it's the same, but for the UK, all professional organisations have a rates list. So if you're an editor, if you're a writer, if you're a transcriptionist, if you're a video editor, whatever it happens to be, there is a sort of a minimum or standard rate card for all creative things. So, I mean, a lot of the time you won't get that money because if you quote that, then suddenly people can't afford it. But there's always a guide somewhere.
I'd say whatever you do, expect to be between $50 and $100 per 10K.
Yeah, I can not great break it down, but that sounds okay to me. But
that sounds all right. Yeah, between $50 and $100, I'd say it can go higher, but that will be if you bunch a different amount of editing. Like if you have an editor that can do developmental and sensitivity in line, for example, or proofread in line, or so you'll get a rate, and it might be higher than 100, per 10K. But I'd say for one single pass of editing, anything, and I think it's pretty much fair. Expect and between $50 and $100 per 10,000 words.
Whatever side of the equation you're on, there's like centralized resources that you can just search for, like editing rate cards UK or whatever, or if you know the union or the professional body that represents, like, so for example, it would be over here, it'd be Society of Authors, or if it's television, you would be like you'd be looking up the Beck2 rates.
Yeah, the Editing Association and the American Editors Association, or those will give you tariffs and
so that
and
way,
rates.
and you can also, if you're just starting out, you can also deliberately price at the lower end of the scale. And if you're if you're super experienced, you probably have.
And also, let me put it to you this way: when I do translations sometimes, and when I have a very clean rate, but I never, for long form fiction, obviously my rates compounds to less than for short form fiction or for short form nonfiction. If you send me, if you say, okay, I need you to translate 5,000 words, it's not going to be the same price that if you ask me to translate 150,000 words, obviously. But I have rates that I don't go under. And then I have rates that scale with the amount of words that you want me to work on. And it's the same for editing. But yes, in general, for sensitivity reading, expect to pay about between $35 and $50 an hour. And per 10K, you're going to be around $100 an hour. For 10K for sensitivity reading. I'd say for editorial assessment, it's about the same thing, because that's a shorter amount of work and you get an assessment. So for the sensitivity reading / assessment and the editorial assessment, you're going to get a page pretty much that's going to tell you what's going on generally for the whole piece. And when you then do developmental or sensitivity editing, then it's like line. You're going to get, somebody's going to read through your book, and everywhere that there is an issue with that particular aspect of your book, they're going to put a comment or they're going to put a suggestion, which I do a lot of. Depends on the speed. If the deadline's short or long. Sometimes if I know I'm going to do several paths, then sometimes in the beginning I'll put less suggestion because I want my author to work on it. But if I know I'm going to do one pass and it's going to be very short, then I can do suggestion, and Lola will tell you it's going to feel like she's written it.
Yeah,
that's the point. But yes, so a reading and an editorial assessment are the first thing that you're going to want to do. Some of that is if you are looking for an agent or a publisher, you definitely need an editorial assessment. And once you've done that, you can go and look for agents or publishers. If you have a publisher, most likely...
Sorry, just for clarity to think, it is very rare, unless you're pitching to a very small press or something incredibly niche, that you'll approach a publisher directly. So when we're saying be ready to pitch, it's 9 times out of 10, I would say, you're ready to pitch to an agent, because they will then have their own suggestions and their own edits and their own process that they put you through to get you ready for submitting to a publisher. So it can be like a
steps.
This editing process is not one and done, basically. No.
Yes.
Not for mainstream fiction, certainly. And a lot of the bigger niche, like, historical crime, all those kind of mainstreamy ones.
So if you're self-publishing, you're going to want to do a sensitivity editing, a developmental editing, and a line editing. That's the most important ones. If you do this with one person, it's going to cost you a lot less money, but it's kind of hard to find. It's difficult to find unicorns. Like, I do developmental sensitivity and line editing, but that's rare. You'll find people who do developmental only or developmental and sensitivity, if you fall in what they read for in terms of sensitivity. You'll find line and copy editors, but rarely will you find editors who do all of it. That's very rare. But so if you're self-publishing, you want to, the developmental part is, a lot of people skip that because they think they have it and it's done. If you don't have the funds for developmental, sensitivity, and line, my advice would be get a developmental assessment, work on that, then definitely get a sensitivity and a line editing, because sensitivity, a lot of people think it doesn't matter until they realize that unless you have beta readers or someone who really went through the experience that you're writing about, and they're willing to do it because they love you and they're your friend, and they want to support you. And bear in mind,
it's relatively new to the publishing industry as a whole, so they kind of know about it, but they don't always know when to use it. So
exactly, a lot of people are going to.
There might be times where you have to can you please get someone to run this past, because I'm not confident that I'm qualified to write about this type of experience.
Yes. And publishers sometimes will look at you like, we don't have that in-house. But if you're self-publishing, at least get a read if you can't afford an edit. But don't skip. And if you think that, if you've written your book and you think it's safe not to get a sensitivity editing, at least get a read, because it's never as easy going as you think. And it's important. Nowadays it's important. I think 20 years ago it was important already, but I don't think anyone kind of thought that way. But it's 2020 and people are out there. You're gonna see that you're gonna be online, whether you're self-publishing or you're being published by a publishing house. You're gonna be online, you're gonna be talking to people. Your readers are gonna talk to you directly in your DMs, in your mentions, in your everywhere that you are, because you're not anonymous anymore. It's not the writer in their office, in their house, and nobody, and you only see people when you go to book signings, if you do book signings.
And apart from anything else, you've got a responsibility to not hurt people.
You do.
If you choose to ignore that, then, you're kind of inviting a lot of potential trouble on your doorstep.
Yes, like be aware, and this is the advice that we're going to give here. If you can't afford a whole sensitivity editing, do a sensitivity read. And one, because you're responsible for your book. And two, because, like Lola said, you're not doing it is inviting a lot of, criticism, and a lot of, people are going to tell you. And now they can, because you're online. Right? They're going to tell you on Amazon, they're going to tell you on Goodreads, they're going to tell you on Twitter, they're going to tell you, and you're going to regret not doing it. It's not even so much
what they tell you, it's what they say to other people. And if you follow YA at all as a genre, then
and romance,
one backlash can lose you your contract. It can get your book not published. So
indeed,
don't be a dick, as a general rule, I suppose.
I think that's a good one. Be a good human being. Don't hurt others. Be kind. I think that's really important. And sensitivity editing is a way to make sure that you're kind to others and you're not treating their experience as if it wasn't important. And it's also being kind to yourself, and it's ensuring that you are publishable, that publishing houses and magazines and critics and people are not just going to pick up on what you did wrong, but they're actually going to read your book and pick up on what you did right. So yes, do a sensitivity read if you can't afford a sensitivity editing, but definitely do something around sensitivity. And line editing, people think, I just need a copy edit. Right? People think I just need someone to catch up my grammar. And I'm going to be honest with you, you need a line editor. Line editors do fact checking. At least I do it. I know that it would makes me feel weird.
It's one of those things where it depends what way you go through the process and who your publisher is, what they call things. But basically it's one of the things that should be done.
Line editing is more expensive than copy editing. It's true. But a good line editor will give you a lot of editing that you didn't know you needed. When copy editing is really like base of the base. As I don't usually sell my my services as copy editing, because I can't turn off the line editor in me. And don't do that. Don't abuse copy editors hoping they will do line editing for you when you're paying them only for
don't
copy.
Don't be like me that doesn't really know the difference and just kind of does the edits that she's given and goes, yes, okay, whatever.
Yes,
and
line editing.
I always forget
you want line editing. You definitely want line editing. It will make your voice and your style shine. And that's really what you're looking for. Developmental editing will make your message and your characterization and your story shine. And line editing is like, it's like the cherry on the cake. If it's well done and if you trust it, it will, everything you try to do, it will just make it better.
Yeah.
And so that's pretty much it for editing. Proofreading is the very last thing that is done to your book when it's ready to go to the press, pretty much.
Or and no matter how many editors you have, you're always responsible for the final draft. So good luck with that.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
frequently where I fall down because I have neither a proofreader nor an editor's eye. But it's exactly what it says. It's checking for typos. It's checking that you haven't called
the very last thing.
Yeah. Main character the wrong name. You haven't said they're in Glasgow when they're in London. You know.
Yeah.
The detail of
writing. You didn't miss something really important, or
like chapter 4, for example. Yeah. You know, it's in there.
Yes. And it's a good thing to have someone proofread who has not done everything else, because you want a fresh pair of eyes
on it. And
but honestly, if you're self-publishing, I'm not going to say don't pay a proofreader. I'm just going to say if you have a friend who, you know, does a lot of writing for their work or something like that, if you have a spouse who is used to reading your stories and such, then, you know, who you know have read it in the very first draft. And so my advice to you is don't ask your friends to read in the middle of the process. Ask them to read at the very beginning and at the very end, so that they can feel the change, and they can catch the silly things that you can't see anymore because you've looked at it for so long and so hard that it's like etched in your brain and you can't see it anymore. So that's what proofreading is about. And you just need someone to you can, like, if it's your first book and you've spent, I'd rather you spend your editing budget on a developmental editor, a sensitivity editor, and a line editor. If you're out of money, it's okay to ask your spouse, your friends, you know, like a couple people, just to be sure it reads well and things are okay. If you can afford one, get one. Just make it a new person, because it's you know, you need fresh eyes, and your editor who's worked on it for hours and hours and hours are going to be the same. They're not going to see the smallest, tiniest mistake that they've missed in their editing, because, well, frankly, you know, they've missed it and they've done it as much as they can. And it's not like, don't think that makes them a bad editor, because everybody misses some stuff. Like, I've done Lola's book between 5 days. I read the first 2 days. I read your book and anything that was in it first, and then I started on Monday and I gave it to you Wednesday afternoon, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was 3 days, and I missed a couple of things. That doesn't make me a bad editor. It makes me someone who's, you know, like, worked on it for long hours and a long time and focused on a lot of technical aspects and very, very technical things and very stylistic things. And you know, sometimes, and I've missed, what was the name? you put a name of a very far side character.
Yeah, and basically he's only mentioned twice, and
it was Mr. Whatever or something like.
No, right? I had him as Senator What's His Nuts, and
What's His Nuts, and I missed it because I read, you know,
your brain probably saw the senator and just carried on because that's the senator. That's fine, that's him again. Yeah. And you don't, you know, it should be Blake, by the way, or Buchanan, Blake. I can't remember.
It was. Beckoning. It was Beckoning, but I didn't realize it was What's His Nuts, because that's not what I was looking at.
But to be fair, you were editing a document which had already been edited by 2 other people, and neither of them caught it either. That had been in there since my first draft. So,
because when you have certain caps on, and you're doing something super technical, then sometimes you miss the little trivial things, because the name of the character wasn't important, what was important for me was like that they were mentioned in the sentence or something like that. So I wasn't reading for the name of the guy, and it ended up being what's his nuts. So it was kind of funny though.
Eventually,
yeah, it was caught, and that's the end. And the proofreading hasn't been done yet, so I'm happy it was caught, not by me, but it happens. It doesn't make me a bad editor. It just, it's just human. It's just human work. So you want a fresh pair of eyes. That's what you want. So once you've done some editing, so if you're self-publishing, you'll do it for yourself all at once. But if you're looking for an agent, and if you're niche, you're looking straight to a publisher.
It kind of depends. Yeah, basically, if you're writing for a niche publisher where you're going to have a relatively small audience, something like Lesfic, then it's not tremendously necessary to have an agent, because you're not going to be negotiating much beyond the 3 sets of rights that you have. You've got your publishing rights, you've got your audiobook rights, and you've got your translation rights, which are all done separately. So some publishers will give you a blanket, boilerplate contract which covers all 3, or just leaves the other things to you to negotiate when they come up. So for example, with Ilda now, like, we mostly do the publishing and the audiobook together, because most of our books now go to audiobook, so it's better to have them dealt with up front. But stuff like my film and TV rights, for example, which I didn't think would ever be necessary, but Music in the Mirror, a producer, actually has approached me about putting that on TV. And so I was able to option off those rights, but that's a separate thing. So that's now mine.
Congrats.
To deal with.
That sounds cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, just saying, I want to see that.
Yet, but
okay.
But TV is a long process, and it can be a couple of years all in from start to finish. So not betting the house on that, as it were. But it's basically a case of again, like we were saying with the rates, there are a lot of phenomenal resources already out there, so you can check if anything doesn't look right. In the UK, you've got Society of Authors, you've got Writers Guilds, you've got similar organisations in the EU and in the US. And basically they can do, rather than you having to go get an expensive lawyer that you might only need to use once or twice to check a contract, they've got like contract checking services, and they'll tell you if this is standard, if this is like prejudicial, if your royalty rate is too low, if you're giving away rights that you don't want to give away, that kind of thing. So all of that's out there, if not for free, then for like a membership of that guild,
or a one-off payment. Like you don't need to have someone retainer
priced one. Yeah. So I would recommend if you don't have an agent, get something like that instead, because
good practice is you want to check that you're not being manipulated into something that's a little too constricted, or too low on royalties, or too high on the percentage that you give away to. So if you're going straight to the publishing house because it's niche, or because you've been approached, sometimes they approach you. It happens.
Yeah, that's the way mine went. Or sometimes they'll ask for direct submissions, or they'll have a specific reason for wanting.
Or you'll have a contest.
Yeah,
some publishers some publishers have contests, or you'll have like a you'll have publishers or that have a talent finder in their house in-house, and they do headhunting for some writers, so that will happen, but it's like super rare.
And by the same token, you would do your due diligence on the publisher. But you can also do it on an agent if if you're going for mainstream fiction, you're going to need an agent. There's too much to negotiate in terms of rights, and in terms of like the other things that you're expected to do, in terms of promotion and publicity and all that kind of stuff. So my wife is traditionally published, and she's with one of the big 5. She's Headline. So she, has an agent who handles. There's various different things about rights in different territories, and it's much more complicated than mine. And also traditional publishing tends to go with the advanced model, which smaller publishers just can't do now. They just can't afford it.
Yeah.
So, you know, she gets a certain amount up front, and then she won't get royalties until she earns out each advance that she gets. So, whereas with mine, I don't get a chunk up front, but as soon as the book starts selling, I start getting royalties from it. So both models are quite useful, and it just depends on whether it's your main income or whether it's like a side hustle for you, I suppose, what one's more relevant.
Indeed, and it depends on the publishing house, and it depends on their model
and
they
some
choose.
have longer cycles as well. You tend to find with publishing most things go by quarters, so you won't tend to get like a monthly payment, or you might get a monthly statement, but most people are paid quarterly.
Yeah, quarterly or yearly. I've known authors to be paid yearly.
Yeah, I think most UK ones that I know are quarterly, but and advances and stuff are one off, or they get split over a year. It depends. Again, there's so many variables, but for agents as well, they've also got there's a guide on the Association of Authors Agents, which sounds like a bad tongue twister. But if an agent approaches you, or you know you're trying to scope out if an agent is legit and has your best interests at heart, then that's a kind of verification for that as well. So basically, it's like any business relationship. There are contracts in place that protect you, but like you have to know who you're dealing with as well. So don't be afraid to search them on Twitter, to Google them, to see what other authors
they're publishing.
Find out, you know, a lot of them will have websites saying they represent this author and that writer, and you know,
a lot of writers who have agent, you know, put it in their Twitter bio. Like they'll put represented by such and such. It's not a bad thing to say, hey, I'm interested in this agent, or we're talking and I kind of wanted to know about your experience with them. It's not bad to do it. It's actually a very good thing to do, especially, if you're if you're going for mainstream and you're a marginalized writer, if you're, writing things that have a lot of diversity in it and a lot of not just, cis het white stuff, you definitely want to make sure that your agent has other people who are not just mainstream, cis het white writers. You want to see how they treat them, and if they're happy and if they have a good reputation within the writing community. And it's
the important thing as well, though, is you have to remember you have to have an agent who represents the kind of things you do. Like, for example, you might know so and so has this fantastic agent who gets them great contracts and they get every event going and they're so good. But if they, for example, only deal with like crime writers and you're writing sci-fi, they won't represent you. Like, they're not. Yeah. It's almost unheard of that they would make exceptions like that if they have a niche. So
unless they're trying to branch out and add another genre to their specialty.
In that case, they would approach you if that was the case. They will not. They know their industry and they know what's good for their part of the industry, and that's what makes them good at their job. It's a really big place, and if you spend all day every day working with crime writers and then suddenly you're like, oh, historical fiction, I know nothing about it, then you're not going to get the same rates and the same favors and the same, you don't have the same influence.
So let's answer this question. Why would you want an agent?
Honestly, to get the best possible deal, to a lot of people might feel comfortable advocating for themselves. I mostly do. But there are things that I know are above my head. So, for example, when I move into TV writing over the next few months, I'm going to definitely approach agents for that, because I don't know the industry. And it's not something that you can enter into lightly without an agent. Agents not only obviously they make money. I'm not going to pretend they don't. There's a financial interest in it for them. Yeah. But that incentivizes them to get you the best possible rates and also the most possible work, because the more you do and the more you make, the more they make. I mean, it's just
Speaking of money, like, how much do you expect to give an agent?
Your rates will vary. For most entertainment now, it's hovers between 15 and 20%. Obviously, the better the rep of the agent and the better the deal that they say they can get you, then they tend to be towards the 20% mark. Some who are maybe junior agents within an agency or starting out on their own, they'll probably offer you that slightly lower rate of about 15.
Okay.
You know, it seems
so
like
15
a lot.
to 20%
it's a big chunk to give away.
That's industry standard.
It is, yeah. It used to, you know, it's crept up. It was 10 a good few years ago, and then it was 15 and 17.5% for a while, same as that. But yeah, they do a lot of work for that money as well. Like they don't just take that money and say off you go. Like
what is an agent going to do?
They will get you, generally speaking, a better deal than you would get if you just walked up to a publisher yourself. They've got a kind of collective bargaining power by being like, you know, they generally have more than one author that they can bring to the table, so they can, you know, incentivize that. They also know the industry, like they know it on a level that you probably never will because you're sort of removed from it in a sense. So they know how much people make. They know how much money a company paid such and such an author last year for the same thing. And they know how much things are, what's selling, what isn't selling, what companies are looking for. So they can kind of match things up in a way that would take you weeks and possibly months of research and time to find out. So they tend to be able to maximize like the opportunities that you can get. So for example, if I walked up to a publisher tomorrow, if they accepted unsolicited, you know, whatever, and said, hey, I've got a book, do you want it? They might be like, okay, we'll give you like £500 up front and we'll give you, you know, 20% royalties for every sale of the book. And for me, that's a good deal because, you know,
it's better than nothing.
That's amazing, yeah. But if an agent goes in and they offer them that deal, the agent's gonna be like, nah, 10 grand up front, and you know, we want 35% of this, or we want, you know, and it's
they know and they have the way
hardback, and yeah, so they know how the industry works. They know where the money is made. They know where the bodies are buried,
and they know how much your book is worth.
Yes,
which is very important because authors don't know how. You don't. Authors don't know how much their books are worth. Now, Lola's telling you what happens if you have an agent and how much an agent will take off of the money that you're going to make. And, you know, we never know how much they're going to get you because we're not agents. So we can't talk for that. However, there's one thing that we need to discuss. It's worth it. When is it worth it and not worth it to have an agent? Because
I don't technically have a literary agent.
Exactly. But we both know, and what we're gonna tell you is that certain genres, certain niches, sometimes you think it's not worth it and it is, but for example, when it comes to less fic for now, and very few authors of less fic have agents. Why? Because the amount of money that publishers make on that book, or that you make on that book self-published, it's not big enough that it's going to interest an agent.
Yeah. And also,
am I saying this right?
Making enough that you're also not probably going to make enough that you want to give it up. A fifth of it right away. Because you pretty much
until
you're established. Yeah, you're not.
Because you're pretty much going to give like a quarter or like a fifth, like you say, of what you've made is going to go into your editing.
Yeah.
And it's going to go into your editing before you make it. So when you think about
you're not making a lot at that point. So
you've already expended on expenses, or your publisher is going to have to pay those expenses, but that's a chunk of money that you haven't met yet, and that those costs are gonna start being big, you know, eventually. And if you know, it's an investment, and if you know that the whole amount, like at least in the first year of your book, if you don't know that you can repay that investment, then it's not worth it to take an agent.
Yeah, basically, if you don't know what you're going to be making, and there's a chance that you might not be making a profit at all at that point, maybe until a second year or a second book or whatever, that's the time to start thinking about it. And also, I suppose, with very small genres like this one, there's not a lot of competition, so you're not going to benefit from an agent who can go and shop you to 10 different publishers.
Right, because there
really
isn't
like
20
3.
million yeah. There's like, well, okay, like off the top of my head, who do I know? Who do we know?
Well, like, you've only got really Ilva, Bella, and Bold Stroke that are big that I know of. You've got
and
you've got a couple of boutique publishers.
Yes, like Tor.
Yeah, and Heartsome, I think, is quite small, but they're up and coming, and you know, there's options and they're growing. But you're also
let's say
not for
less fic publishers, you're going to be able to count them on your hands, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
So that means if you need to do the due diligence and check them out, you can do that yourself, pretty much, because
and pitch to
it's
them.
Not going to take long.
Yeah, you don't need an agent to do that. Now, that's for indie. So if you know you write something very niche, and you know that there aren't that many publishers out there for it. I don't know, I'm going to say something silly, but if you write for like horse books, right? Horses books, and there's like 5 big publishers in the world that do horses books, then you know, you might want an agent, but to be honest, once you've pitched to those 5, that's
there's nowhere
it.
else they can keep it for you.
So they're, you know, there's not the need. But if you're going to go mainstream and you want to be, you know, you want to be writing inclusive stories and pitch them everywhere, you need an agent, because you need someone who's going to fight for you, who's going to make sure that you don't get ripped off. And
also someone who understands what order to like attack that huge task in, because and oftentimes you'll need someone who has an in as well. You'll need someone who needs a favor or has worked with that publisher before or something. You know, not to be all like it's who you know, but that is a big part of it. Like,
you need to find the agent who will know which door to use to get you into the biggest ones. And the ones that matter. And you can't do that if you don't have an agent. So my next question for you, Lola, is how do you find an agent?
Well, it's been a while since I've had to look for one, but there'll just be a digital version of this now. But there's basically a list of all the accredited and recognised. It used to be the Writers and Artists Handbook. I imagine it's still some variation on that. And it would have all the agencies in it. Most of them will list where they're based, who works for them, and what genres they represent. A lot of that has moved online in terms of their social media presences are pretty clear. I cannot stress enough like how much you do not pitch to someone who doesn't do what your thing is, because they will ignore it and you will feel rejected for no reason. Also, they'll get annoyed, so it doesn't make a particularly great impression. Even if someone else in the agency does that thing, they won't just pass it on. Like, you have to do the research. You have to be like, hey, there's 10 agents at this agency and 2 of them do historical fiction. I've written historical fiction about, you know, Gentleman Jack type stuff. So I'm going to pitch it to all 10 agents at that firm.
No, that's a mistake.
Yeah. So
go on their website, figure out which agent does what, and then pitch to them.
Yeah. And also be aware they will tell you if they're accepting or not. There are times when, for very good reasons, they do not accept submissions. If you submit within that window, you're literally wasting your time and theirs. So keep an eye on their social media as well as their sort of big official outlets. And also, just like as a timing kind of thing, like maybe don't pitch to them in the week of like Frankfurt Book Fair if they have said that they're going to be there. You know, they're not going to be reading submissions that week. You're just not.
You need to be clever of how you find your agents. So you need to do a little bit of research to find lists of agencies or agents, figure out what genre and what style of writers they go with. Then once you've found the one that you want to pitch to, you know, just...
If I could tattoo one instruction on your foreheads collectively from everyone I know who's worked on both sides of this industry, it would be read the submission guidelines. They will have some. Almost every agents do. And it might be that they only want to see 10 pages, 3 chapters, 5,000 words. They might only accept
Word
text that's submitted in Courier, font, you know, some of them are incredibly specific. Some of them are like, write it on a wall, see if I care. But they will specify in some way.
Yes.
And if a lot of the times I think it's just a test to see what, you know, can you follow instructions? Are you going to listen to me when I talk to you?
Are you going to be difficult, or are you going to be, you know,
a bit of a team player,
someone they want to work with?
Yeah. So follow the instructions. It's a bit like, you know, if you're showing up for a job interview, you wouldn't show up in your pajamas with spaghetti on your face.
And unfortunately, even if you feel like their guidelines are kind of weird or dumb, or they don't benefit your book specifically, you're going to have to swallow that one and follow them anyway.
Yeah, for example, if they'll only take a first chapter submission and your book doesn't get going until chapter 3, don't send them 3 chapters. And also maybe look at your book and find out why it doesn't get going until chapter 3. Which chapter 1.
Yes, which is what you get if you do an editorial assessment. So do your editorial assessment before you pitch. Seriously, it's trust, and don't hesitate to tell your editor, I want to be ready to pitch for agents. Can you please make sure that your editorial assessment?
Yeah, tell them what the assessment is that you need them to make. Like, is it for to self-publish, like straight away, or is it to get an agent, or is it to win a contest, or whatever it is? Just tell them, because they can tailor the feedback to that.
If it's for one thing specifically, you can tell them. If it's for like all agents, you can also tell them. But you know, make sure that your editing is adjusted that you've been very clear what you want with your editors. And for agents, honestly, it's the same thing. Check the guidelines for how to pitch to an agent. You know, they will tell you what they want, which can feel weird, but it's very simple in a way. It makes the process very direct, right? Yeah. Do what they say. And when you've pitched and you've made sure that your story's, you know, ready to pitch, and then pitched to the people that you want to pitch it to, and you have returns, and some are going to be no, and don't take it badly. It's probably either that your pitch wasn't right, or that your story doesn't fit what people want at the time it is, at the current moment. But it's not a reflection on who you are and your capacity, or, oh my God, I'm terrible, I'm never gonna, you know, like there's a lot of things that come into play with getting interest from the industry. And most of that has nothing to do with the kind of person you are, or, you know, or your capacity as a writer, really. I mean,
always be timing, it grow. Can be a lineup of different events. It's
exactly.
You know, you could be on paper, you could be the absolute perfect fit for that agency and that publisher, and it should be the exact perfect time for your book to get sold, and it just might not happen. It is so variable. So
it's variable. So I'm not gonna say don't take it personally, because obviously it feels personal, and
even 5 books in, like, any part of this process can make you feel like your self-esteem can just take an absolute kick in, but
all of this is going to feel personal.
Of it will also make you feel really fantastic as well.
For sure.
So it's not.
So once you get interest, that's when you start vetting the agent. You want to make sure you got the right person, that you know that they're going to be a good fit, and that they're offering you decent rates and all of that.
Get
pretty much. So
don't just sign it blindly.
Yes. Know? If you're so once you've done that, it's time for your agent to actually do their work. And then the publishing, when you get a publishing contract with a publishing house, I don't know how long it takes, but I don't think it's if your agent is good at what they do, and you know, and the trend is good
on your niche, because certain things only sell at certain times of year, and or they might be waiting for a particular book fair or for a particular thing to be announced.
But if it takes more than 12 to 18 months,
probably I would. A lot of the time as well, be guided by how often you hear from your agent. Like if you're talking to them semi-regularly and they're still actively shopping it around, then that's fine. If you haven't heard from them for 6 months and they haven't sent it out in submission for a year, then you know they're not actively representing you.
Working for you.
You can look at a different rep or
agent,
whatever happens.
Or you can have a very strong talk with them.
You're never entirely stuck, and don't feel
Right.
like obliged just because someone shows interest that you have to go with them, or
I
if
don't
it doesn't
know,
feel right, don't do it.
In contracting with agents, I don't know for how long they want you on contract with them.
It's how long's a piece of string. Sometimes it's by book, sometimes it's years, sometimes it's until a certain milestone is met. It's very variable.
You really, and it really depends on the agent, but you really need to think about that. That's an important thing that you need to think about.
And also you have to consider as well whether most of the time you'll have the relationship with the agent and not with the agency. So for example, my wife's agent changed agencies within the course of the time they've been working together. So technically for the stuff that was already signed, it goes through one agency. And for new stuff, that goes through the new agency. So there can be little quirks and complications along the way as well.
Right. You just need to make sure you're comfortable with just check it. Talk to other authors.
If you don't know what it means, find out if other people have it in their contract, and again, use the resources like Society of Authors or Writers Guilds.
You just need to be very careful with your rights, because it's
try not
everything.
to give them away. Unless you really have to.
Once you've pitched to an agent, the agent will do the work, and then when you have a publisher, then you'll go back to the process of getting the book published. That's another different process, and that's when all your editing will happen. And then there'll be some promotion and different things. So let's talk about publishers really quick, and I think then we'll wrap up because we've been here for a while. If you go to pitch to a publisher directly, what do you do?
I can only speak to Ilva because it's the only one I know who accepts direct submissions. Fine. They have a thing on their website that you download and you fill that out accordingly. And it doesn't matter what your book is.
Philip Books is the same way.
You make it fit into that submission form. So that's great because it's so structured and it's so clear. And you can put like, this doesn't apply or whatever. But
so pretty much you have guidelines of what what you do.
And there's a page that basically says do this and don't do that. So as long as you stick to that, your submission will be read and it will be taken seriously.
So follow the guidelines. Again, that's really important. Do it in the format that they want. Don't waste their time, especially if you have like I said, if you can count the number of publishers in your specific niche or genre, you really don't want to piss them off or make them unhappy. And because you can work with one for a certain time, but you might have to work with another for another time or for another book or for something else. So don't burn your bridges. So follow the guidelines, be, really courteous and definitely. So once you've gotten the interest of a publisher, what kind of contract are we talking about? So how much royalty, in terms of percentages or things, what's a decent contract? What's a weird contract? Or
I think industry standards normally around 30% after a certain, and again, that comes with different caveats of if it sells for a certain amount, if it's this format or that format, you get slightly higher and slightly lower percentages.
So say there's no advance.
That doesn't really affect it very much, to be honest.
Okay.
The percentage rates tend to stay the same. It's just they won't kick in until you've earned out your advance.
Right. So what's so you think a good percentage for royalties would be what?
It's normally about 30-35, I think, sort of cross industry. So
across industry, right? So guys, if a publisher offers you 15%, you're getting ripped off.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a reason for that, let them explain it by all means. But it would have to be something
a really good reason.
They're selling the book for half price from day one or something. I don't know. It would have to be. And again, percentages tend to travel fairly well, so it's not. I would be wary of that. I mean, the first thing I did when I got my first contract was compare it to Kate's because I know that's from a big five, and
that would make sense. Yeah.
A lot of the terms were exactly the same because it's fairly standardized as an industry. The only thing is she had certain things because she has a publicist and stuff that's provided by her publisher, just because it's a big market and you need that level of
right. So she gets more promotion. She gets more support, and usually you'll find that in niche publishing you get a little bit less support because they don't have the same kind of means that big publishers have.
They don't have the resources, yeah. So
yeah, they don't have the resources also, for sure. Oh, we lost you.
My sound just changed in there to my AirPods just died.
Oh, okay.
So
we're good.
Yeah.
You were saying
what you get in like personal touch from a small publisher who'll like, you'll work on it together and you'll go all out to promote the book. You might not get that same level of attention from like a massive publisher, but you probably a dedicated person or two who will be like your project manager and your publicist or your social media manager, whatever it is that you need support.
Oh, we lost you, Lola.
Oh, why is it not kicking back in?
No, we're good.
Okay,
we're good. Sorry. So, right, guys, clearly, check what your publisher is offering in terms of percentages, and also in terms of support for the book and the promotion and what's going to happen. Obviously. Right. And how long they want you on contract for. If they want one book, more books, all of that is important. The good advice at the end that I want to give you guys, and I think Lola will agree with me, is make sure you have a little bit of community in Twitter, in Facebook, in Tumblr, everywhere writers are. Make sure that you connect with other people when you're in the process of writing, so that when it comes to time to be in the process of finding an agent or finding a publisher, or even like signing contracts and publishing or finding editors, you have a community to rely on where you can say, hey, do you guys know this person? Have you ever worked with such? How much did you pay for this? Like, it's a lot easier if you're a little bit involved in the community for you to be checked, in terms of, for you to have a little bit more confidence in your decisions and in signing very important things about royalties and rights and, all of that. It's a lot better if you are part of the community. So again, you'll find people who will, if you go to group chats and if you start following writers that you like and writers that are, it's important to follow people like Chuck Wending or, Maureen Johnson or Gail Simone or N.K. Jemisin or who do we like? Oh, Shannon McGuire, you were telling me about?
Yes.
It's important to follow those people because they're excellent at doing promotion and social media and engagement.
And they know the industry really well, so they'll tell you good examples and bad examples of stuff.
Right. So you can follow how they do it and how they work the industry and the engagement with their readers. They're very good people to learn from, but you also want to follow people that are your size, because those people will, there. Like some people, like Gail Simone is amazing. If you ask something to Gail Simone on Twitter, very often she'll get back to you. But don't go asking for consults from people like Chuck Wending, because you will never get it. However, if you have more precise question, if you also follow and interact with people who are, maybe not as famous or not as broadly known, or broadly successful, you'll find people who are willing to share their process and their experience with you, and will gain something from sharing your experience with them. You'll be able to exchange. Exactly. So I think that that's it. Like when you get to that point and you've followed the editing process, you have an agent or you have a publishing house or both, congrats. you're on your way, which is a good thing. And that's pretty much, I think for us, definitely that is going to conclude how you start writing and how you start, how do you become a writer and an author. We've given you a lot of resource. everything is going to be in the playlist. I created a playlist for this on my channel, and I've listed it in the description. So this concludes the how-tos and the steps of the process of writing. Then all of that we've talked for the past couple of months, right? We've been doing this since what, March?
So,
April? I can't remember.
Yeah, since lockdown started, I think. Yeah.
Pretty much for quarantine, we wanted, as writers and with different experiences, we wanted to give you a lot of, knowledge and technical, pointers and tricks and tips and do's and don'ts and all of that. We're not done. We are concluding the first part of this series with this last episode, but we are looking to give you another 6 episodes where we're going to have guests. So we're going to have guests from the writing industry. We're going to have sensitivity readers. We're going to have writers. We're trying to get you a publisher. And if we could find an agent, it would be amazing, but I don't know anyone that would come online because, it's a thing. But we are definitely going to get you editors as well. We're going to get you people who can talk about their side of the industry and their experience and how they got published or how they choose writers, or talk about a lot of things that are interesting, and you're probably going to get a lot of knowledge just from listening to these people. And that's also going to be your gateway into being part of this community. You can follow them, you can ask them questions when we're live and beforehand. So what I'll do is that I will announce the guests once we have them, and every time that we have a guest on, I will announce ahead of time, and you guys can give me your questions.
Yeah, that'd be great.
We're still working on the format, what we want to ask them and how we want to get them to start talking. We think an hour will be max, right? Because then that's a long time.
Probably, yeah.
So definitely, leave your comments down below, and follow Lola and myself on Twitter if you want to send us questions for our guests. And, if you have follow-up questions to all the things that we've done here, we'd be more than happy to answer you. So this was a good ride. Thank you, Lola, for all your knowledge and your conversation and hanging out with me. That was cool. Thank you to everyone who's watched and liked, and whether you watch live or you watch after, we're really grateful to have your time. I think we both hope that we've given you good advice and good help and motivation. I don't know, I mean, hopefully. I think we did. Yeah, right. So anything you want to say, parting words?
Thanks for hanging in there, but we'll be back hopefully with some other perspectives, and it'll be nice to see you all hopefully pop up.
So we'll be back soon. We'll be back soon with our first guest, and until then, please like we said, like the video if you found it helpful, subscribe for more. Don't forget to hit that bell notification so that you get notified when we come live or when I post other videos. All our links are in the description, in the description below. Yes. And
you can find us various places and talk to us about anything you happen to want to talk about. Right?
Thank you so much for hanging out. And if you really, really want to help the channel, hop on the playlist and watch more videos.
Okay.
That's what I know. You guys take care. Stay home. Stay safe. Stay healthy. And we'll see you soon. Cheers.
Bye.